Hey there, welcome to My Green Pets. I'm William Green. Welcome to the little plant corner of my apartment. We're going to look over some of the things in here, and then we're going to go over to the greenhouse and see what's going on. Unfortunately, got some bad news in the greenhouse, but we'll get to that. There's lots of good news too. So let's start out by looking down here at the plants that I have under this light. I brought my Dendrobium country girl home because she's all bloomed out and she's beautiful. She's also very fragrant. Really nice, sweet honey scent. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Just love these. And these will last a long time too. Next to it we got our Paphiopedilum that's been in bloom for several months, 3 months maybe. And then we got tonsum over here, been in bloom, gosh, February or March for sure. And then Cat-Lair Rex. This seed pod is about 320 days old, and it's still got time to go. Still not quite ripe yet, but this new growth. All of our hopes are lying with this new growth here. The new growth has got some roots developing, and I am really watching those carefully. Really excited about this guy putting out some new roots and finally being able to take up water again. You can see the bulbs are so wrinkly. Plant just does not have a whole lot of water stored up, and all the previous roots were dead. So these new roots are the only hope. These are kind of floppy even. Over here we got a few slipper orchids. I was telling you last week that this prime child had some issues with rot, so we will see if that improves. Actually, it looks like it's pushing out a new growth down here. Well, that could explain why these were rotting off. Okay, well, maybe that's not bad news. My philippinense with the wonky stem is blooming out, or it's going to be blooming out soon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 flowers. Not bad. And then this is the cattail orchid, Dienia ophrydis, blooming out there. So, no complaints. Everything seems to be moving right along. Let's go over to the greenhouse and see what is happening over there. Here we are at the greenhouse. This is where I rent space. This is a large commercial greenhouse with thousands of orchids, and I have this little space where I keep the collection, well, the bigger part of the collection anyway, most of the plants. And today I want to start out with the Catasetinae. And I just watched a video of Stephen Van Camp and Lewis recently talking about that his Catasetinae were really behind. And I just want to show you guys, I don't know what it is, my Catasetinae are way ahead than they were last year. I mean, they are enormous for where we are in the year. I'm really hoping that these large back bulbs and big growths are going to lead to lots of really nice flowers. This desert Davison, actually, it's funny when you read the description. This was supposed to be a miniature Catasetinae. The breeding was supposed to lead to a smaller plant. It obviously did not. And then this is my Mormodia Jumbo World. I've had this little guy since 2015, and it's really nice. Blooms. They all bloom in the fall and the winter. They're all doing great. Bulbophyllum echinolabium is a very large bulbophyllum. In fact, it's got the largest flowers in the bulbophyllum family. And this is Hal. Hal is one of my favorite plants, not only because he's the largest, but also because he blooms consistently again and again, and he's got 3 spikes right now. So I tried something last week. I actually introduced some pollen into this flower the day that it opened. And if you'll notice, the flower is now, it's folded up and it's hanging downward, which means maybe the pollination was successful. I've been showing you that it had a really wonky looking leaf with some big ugly spots on it. Well, Hal finally shed that leaf this week, and now that bulb is there, but the leaf is gone, and maybe we'll see him put out some nice new growth in the next few weeks or so. So Hal's looking pretty good now that that leaf is gone. Now, just before we move on to some other plants, I wanted to show you some flowers that are in the greenhouse. These aren't my collection. These aren't part of my collection, but they're super nice. This is a Paphiopedilum tentation, and it's just really got big, beautiful flowers on it. And this is a Vanda blue. I think it's kind of a newer hybrid. The camera just really has a hard time capturing how vivid those colors are. This monster is a philippinense, actually. And it's got, man, the stem on this thing is super thick. It's got, I think, 7 flowers on it. Really, really nice. Love those slipper orchids. And then right next to that is a Cattleya primary hybrid. This is a Gaudii. And this is a hybrid from Sunset Valley Orchids. It's a Cattleya type, so it's bluish. It's got the most lovely fragrance as well, like a vanilla, spicy, sweet scent. Super nice. All right, let's go back to my collection. This is Stanhopea oculata, and it has been plagued with really nasty spots on some of the leaves. But the newest leaves are clean, and so I'm really being diligent about spraying with Physan and trying to keep the new leaves from developing spots. Same thing here, this Bulbophyllum lobbii has got the same issue. The older growth had lots of spots, but maybe the new ones won't. I don't know. What do you guys think? You think they're going to get spots on them? Another plant I had some issues. This is Phalaenopsis schilleriana, and it has some kind of a fungal issue on the leaves, and it just looks terrible. But the new growth is growing out nicely. The danger is, of course, if that fungus or whatever that is gets into the crown of the plant, it might be toast. Bulbophyllum medusae is coming out pretty nicely. That gold and yellow color, I believe, is from the fact that the plant is receiving the maximum amount of light that it can take. A lot of new growths on that. This plant, Bulbophyllum lovely Elizabeth, also growing really well, but hasn't bloomed in a couple of years. And actually, I've been thinking maybe the reason this plant isn't blooming is because it's getting too much sun. I've been reading that maybe some Bulbophyllums actually prefer a little bit of shade, and this one gets lots of sun, so I don't know. But there's also some other Bulbophyllums in this basket. This is a Bulbophyllum rufinum, and then there's also a Bulbophyllum lepidum in there. This has got cute little red flowers when it decides to bloom. And there's also a little Bulbophyllum catenulatum in there. So there's lots of little Bulbophyllums in the basket. Now getting ready to bloom here in the next few weeks is Vanda Falcata. This is a orchid that's been traditionally grown in East Asia for centuries, and it is just about ready to pop open. It's got several spikes actually, and it's just super nice. I mean, I gotta say, this plant, fingers crossed, it hasn't given me any issues since I've had it. It just grows wonderfully. It's got a really nice form, and it's actually getting kind of untidy. So after it blooms, I might be separating it and dividing it a little bit to make it look a little bit more presentable. Cattleya walkeriana came to me a couple months ago. It seems to be growing well into this plastic pot with granite rocks inside. Lots of new roots in there. Don't think we're going to see any flowers this year, though. Cattleya Maxima also is a plant that's relatively new in my collection. Lots of new growths. Lots of nice new roots pushing down into that granite and lava rock substrate. And then one of the older growths actually does have a pretty interesting looking sheath on it there. And I haven't seen any action happening with that sheath recently, but I read, or actually heard, some of you told me that it will possibly bloom in the fall, so that's exciting. Alright, let's look at some of the Cat-Lair Rexes. This is a plant that was actually very dehydrated last year, but it's putting out lots of new roots, and it looks like it is well on the road to recovery. Put out a really nice new growth this year. Now, some bad news. You see how when the leaves first come out, they kind of form a cup? Well, believe it or not, that cup can hold water. And if it's just pure water, it's one thing. But if it's not pure water, you could end up with this. So it looks like some water got down into the growth and just completely rotted out the base of the sheath. And it looks like the flower buds in there were rotted out as well. So this was going to bloom, but I don't think that this particular sheath is going to bloom now, which is a real shame. Would have been a first bloom for this plant. Luckily, it does have another sheath on it, so we will still see flowers from this plant, so it's not all bad, but it would have been so nice to have two on the same plant. So what I've got plastic bags on everything now to keep the water out of the growths. And this is another plant. This was the first one to show a sheath this year. And actually, if you kind of look at the base there, you can actually see something. Let's go ahead and grab the light and see if we can put the light behind there and see anything inside that sheath. Yeah, there's some kind of little shadow. Looks like two flower buds to me. What do you think? Looks like some little buds in there. So those will probably take 2 or 3 weeks to grow up and push out, but we should be seeing some flowers on that plant. Alright guys, I really appreciate you stopping by to check on my green pets. For the most part, things look good. There's a few problems here and there. Trying to look at things. We've got blue plastic bags on my Cattleyas. But stay tuned, and we'll see you next time right here on My Green Pets. I'm William Green. See ya.